Dr. Lee Hanna wiped the sweat from her forehead as she studied the alien plant samples in her lab. The morning sun of Kepler 442b shone through the thick windows of the research station. She had been working on this mining colony for 2 years now, and every day brought new discoveries. The colony was a peaceful place where humans worked alongside many different alien species. The insect-like Vrix were excellent engineers. Their 6 arms could work on complex machines faster than any human. The Null looked like walking water and could change their shape to fit into small spaces. The lumens were made of pure energy and could power entire buildings just by being near them. Hanna loved her job. As a xenobiologist, she studied how different alien life forms worked. She had learned to speak basic words in 7 alien languages. The aliens seemed to like her too. They often brought her interesting specimens they found while mining. Dr. Hanna, called Vextar, a young Vrix engineer. His insect eyes gleamed as he approached her desk. "Look what we found in Tunnel 7. He held up a crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Hanna took it carefully and held it up to her scanner. The readings made her eyes widen. "This is incredible," she said. "The energy patterns are unlike anything I've seen before." Before Vextar could respond, loud alarms began blaring throughout the station. The lights flashed red and an automated voice spoke over the speakers. "All personnel report to evacuation stations immediately." This is not a drill. Hanna looked at Vextar with confusion. They had never had real evacuation drills before. Through the window, she could see other workers running toward the landing pads where the transport ships were kept. Captain Park Jun burst into her lab. He was the head of colony security, a serious man who rarely smiled. Today, his face was pale with worry. "Dr. Lee, we need to leave now," he said. "The Dominion Empire has arrived. They're demanding we give them the mining rights to this planet." Hanna had heard of the Dominion Empire. They were a group of aggressive aliens who took what they wanted by force. They controlled dozens of star systems and treated other species like slaves. "How long do we have?" she asked, quickly packing her most important research files. "Not long. Their warships are already in orbit. They've given us 1 hour to evacuate or they'll start attacking." Vextar clicked his mandibles nervously. "What about my people? We cannot leave our nest so quickly." Captain Park's expression softened slightly. "I'm sorry, but we can only take the humans. The transport ships don't have life support systems for all the different alien species." This was the cruel reality of space travel. Each species needed different air, water, and temperature to survive. The human ships were only designed for human needs. Hanna felt sick to her stomach. "We can't just abandon them." "We don't have a choice," Captain Park said firmly. "Come on, we need to go." As they ran toward the landing pads, Hanna could see the alien workers gathering their families. The Vrix were carrying their young in special pouches. The Null were flowing together into larger group forms. The lumens were growing brighter, which meant they were scared. The human transport ships were already lifting off. Hanna could see them rising into the sky like silver birds. She ran faster, her research bag bouncing against her side. They were almost at the landing pad when the first Dominion ships appeared in the sky. They were huge, black vessels that blocked out the sun. Energy beams shot down from them, hitting the mining equipment and causing massive explosions. "The pad is destroyed," Captain Park shouted over the noise. Smoke and fire surrounded them. Hanna could see that the landing pad had been hit directly. Their escape ship was a burning wreck. "This way." Captain Park pulled her toward the emergency shelters built into the mountainside. But as they ran, more energy beams struck around them. The ground shook, and Hanna fell hard. Her research bag went flying, and papers scattered in the wind. When she tried to get up, she saw Captain Park lying still nearby. Blood ran from a cut on his head. He was breathing but unconscious. Hanna tried to drag him toward the shelter, but he was too heavy. The Dominion ships were landing now, and she could see armored soldiers pouring out of them. "Human, stop!" one of the soldiers shouted in broken English. Hanna looked around desperately. The alien workers were being herded together by more soldiers. She could see Vextar among them, his arms bound with energy chains. She had 2 choices: run and maybe escape, or stay and try to help Captain Park. Her training told her to run. Her heart told her to stay. Before she could decide, an energy net fell over her. The Dominion soldiers had caught her. Another human. One soldier said to another in their harsh language, "The Empire will be pleased." They dragged her toward a large transport ship. Inside, she was pushed into a crowded holding area. The smell hit her first. Dozens of different alien species crammed together in a space meant for half their number. She found herself next to a group of Vrix workers, including Vextar. His compound eyes looked sad when he saw her. "Dr. Hana," he said softly, "I hoped you had escaped." "What's going to happen to us?" she asked. An older Null in the corner answered. His water-like body was a dull gray color, which meant he was very frightened. "We go to the prison worlds," he said. "We work in the crystal mines until we die." Hana felt her heart sink. She had heard stories about the Dominion prison worlds. Aliens worked 16 hours a day mining rare crystals in dangerous conditions. Most died within a year. Around her, she could hear dozens of different species talking in their own languages. Some were crying. Others were angry. A few seemed to have given up hope entirely. But Hana was a scientist, and scientists always looked for solutions. She began to study the other prisoners, trying to understand who they were and what they could do. The Vrix were strong and good with technology. The Null could fit into small spaces and work underwater. The Lumens could provide light and energy. There were also species she had never seen before. Tall, thin aliens with 4 arms, small furry creatures with big eyes, and crystalline beings that chimed when they moved. As the transport ship lifted off from the planet, Hana made herself a promise. She would find a way to help these people. She didn't know how, but she would try. Through a small window, she watched Kepler 442b grow smaller until it was just another star. Somewhere out there, the human transport ships were carrying her people to safety. She hoped Captain Park had been rescued. The journey to the prison world would take several days. Hana decided to use that time to learn everything she could about her fellow prisoners. If they were going to survive what was coming, they would need to work together. She didn't know it yet, but her decision to stay and help others had already started something that would change the galaxy forever. The aliens around her had noticed that this human could have escaped, but chose to help instead. In many of their cultures, this kind of sacrifice was the highest honor. The seeds of something much larger than a simple rescue were already being planted in the minds of every alien in that crowded prison ship. They had seen something in humanity that would not be forgotten. The prison transport ship was cold and dark. Hana had been traveling for 3 days now, and the conditions were getting worse. The Dominion soldiers gave them very little food and water. The air recycling system was old and made strange noises. Hana sat in a corner with Vextar and tried to stay warm. Around them, hundreds of aliens from dozens of different species were packed together. Some were sleeping, others were talking quietly in their own languages. She had been watching and listening carefully. Each species seemed to keep to their own groups. The Vrix stayed together in one area. The Null formed a flowing mass in another corner. The crystalline beings, who she learned were called Gel, chimed softly to each other near the wall. But there was tension between the groups. The Vrix and Null had apparently fought a war 50 years ago. The Gel considered most other species to be inferior. A group of tall gray aliens called the Mordan believed they were the oldest and wisest species in the galaxy. "They will never work together," Vextar said sadly. "Too much history. Too much hate." Hana understood his concern, but she had an idea. As a xenobiologist, she had studied not just alien bodies, but alien cultures. She knew that most species had certain universal concepts. Her chance came when a fight broke out between a young Null and an older Mordan. The Null had been trying to reach the water dispenser, but the Mordan blocked his way. "Inferior water creature," the Mordan said in broken galactic common language. "Wait your turn." The young Null's body turned bright red with anger. "I have been waiting for hours, Ancient One." Other aliens began choosing sides. The situation was about to become violent when Hana stood up. "Stop," she said loudly in galactic common. Both aliens looked at her in surprise. Most of the other prisoners also turned to watch. "Fighting each other won't help anyone," Hana continued. "The Dominion wants us to be weak. They want us to hate each other instead of them." The Morden looked down at her with contempt. What would a young species like humanity know about such things? Hannah took a deep breath. This was her chance to try something that might work. "I know that most species have concepts of honor," she said. "I know that the Mordan believe in the ancient wisdom of patience. And I know that the Null value the flow of harmony." Both aliens looked surprised that she knew these cultural concepts. "So let me ask you both," Hannah continued. "Is there honor in fighting over water while our real enemies laugh at us? Is there harmony in conflict when we should be flowing together toward survival?" The young Null's color shifted to a calmer blue. The Mordan's 4 eyes blinked slowly, which Hannah knew was a sign of thoughtful consideration. "The human speaks wisdom," the Mordan said finally. He stepped aside to let the Null reach the water. After that incident, more aliens began to pay attention to Hannah. They were curious about this human who seemed to understand their cultures. Her real chance to help came 2 days later. A small furry alien called Kesh became very sick. The creature was from a species called the Vel, and he was having trouble breathing. His thick fur was matted with sweat, and his large eyes were dull with pain. The other Vel gathered around Kesh, making sad whistling sounds, but none of them knew how to help him. Hannah approached carefully. "May I look at him?" she asked the eldest Vel. The old alien studied her for a moment. "You are not a Vel. How can you help?" "I study how different species work," Hannah explained. "I might be able to figure out what's wrong." The Vel elder nodded slowly and Hannah knelt beside Kesh. She couldn't touch him directly. Vel's skin was sensitive to oils from other species, but she could observe his symptoms. His breathing was shallow and fast. His fur had changed color from brown to gray. She had studied Vel biology before, and these signs pointed to something specific. "He's having an allergic reaction," she told the other Vel. "Probably to something in the recycled air. Vel are sensitive to certain metals." "How do you fix?" asked the elder. Hannah looked around the ship carefully. She needed something to filter the air around Kesh, but they had no medical supplies. Then she remembered something from her research on different species. The gel, the crystalline beings, could purify air by resonating at certain frequencies. She approached the gel group carefully. They were beautiful creatures that looked like living gemstones, but they considered themselves superior to most other species. "Honored Gel," she said, using the proper formal address. "I need your help to save a life." The largest Gel made a deep humming sound. "Why should we concern ourselves with the lesser being's problems?" Hannah had expected this response. She had studied Gel culture. "Because the Gel are known throughout the galaxy for their perfect harmony," she said. "And true harmony includes compassion for all living things." The Gel fell silent. Hannah held her breath, hoping she had said the right thing. Finally, the large Gel spoke again. "What do you need?" "Kesh is dying because the air contains metal particles that his species cannot breathe. If you could resonate at frequency 847.3, it would neutralize those particles in the air around him." The Gel considered this. Then slowly they began to hum together. The sound was beautiful, like crystal bells ringing in perfect harmony. The air around them began to shimmer slightly. Hannah led them to where Kesh lay dying. The Gel surrounded the young Vel and continued their harmonic resonance. Within minutes, Kesh's breathing became easier. His fur began to return to its natural brown color. The other Vel made happy whistling sounds. The elder approached Hannah with tears in his large eyes. "You saved him," the elder said. "In our culture, this creates a life debt. You and all your people are now under Vel protection." Hannah was surprised. She had just been trying to help, not create any kind of debt. But Vextar touched her arm with one of his 6 hands. "Dr. Hannah," he said quietly, "do you understand what just happened?" "I helped save a life," she said. "More than that. In Vrix culture, we also have life debt. You organize different species to work together to save a life. This means your entire species has shown worthiness." Around the ship, other aliens were talking in their own languages. Hannah couldn't understand most of what they were saying, but the tone was different now. There was less anger and more respect. A tall, thin alien with blue skin approached her. She was from a species called the An, and she spoke Galactic Common very well. "I am Urana," she said. "I have been watching you, human. In 3 days you have prevented fights, organized cooperation, and saved a life. The An have a concept called soul brightness. It means someone whose spirit shines so clearly that others can see it. You have soul brightness. More aliens began approaching Hana. Each one told her about similar concepts in their own cultures. Honor debt from the Morden, flow harmony from the Null, light sharing from the Lumens. That night, as the ship continued toward the prison world, something had changed. The different species were no longer keeping strictly to their own groups. She saw Vrix sharing food with Null. Zell were teaching young Vel how to sing in harmony. Morden elders were speaking with On philosophers. Vextar sat beside Hana as she tried to sleep on the hard floor. "What you did today," he said softly. "It will be remembered. Among my people, when someone shows such honor, we tell the story to our children and they tell it to their children." Hana was too tired to understand the full meaning of his words. She fell asleep thinking about how different species could work together when they focused on helping instead of hurting. She didn't know that throughout the ship, aliens were quietly talking about the human who had shown them a different way. They were making plans and promises that would soon reach far beyond this single prison transport. The seeds of alliance were beginning to grow. The prison world looked like a nightmare. Through the small windows of the transport ship, Hana could see a gray planet covered in mining operations. Huge machines dug into the surface, pulling out glowing crystals. Smoke and dust filled the air. "Welcome to your new home," a Dominion guard said with cruel laughter. "You will work here until you die." The prisoners were lined up to leave the ship. Hana noticed that the aliens around her were not acting like defeated captives anymore. They stood straighter and looked at each other with purpose. Over the past week, something amazing had happened. The different species had begun working together in ways Hana had never seen before. It started small, Vrix helping Null reach high places, Zell purifying water for Vel, Morden sharing their wisdom with younger species. But then it grew into something bigger. The aliens began teaching each other their languages and skills. Vextar learned how to communicate with the Lumens using light patterns. The On showed the Vel how to make tools from ship parts. The Null taught everyone how to move quietly through small spaces. Most importantly, they had been planning. "Remember," Vextar whispered to Hana as they walked off the ship. "When we reach the processing center, you go left with Group 7. The Zell will create a distraction." Hana nodded. She still couldn't believe they were actually going to try this. The plan was crazy and dangerous, but every species had agreed to help. The processing center was a large building where new prisoners were given work assignments. The Dominion guards herded them inside and began separating them into different groups. "Vrix to heavy machinery," shouted one guard. "Null to tunnel work, Lumens to power generation." This was exactly what they had hoped for. The Dominion was splitting them up based on their species' natural abilities. But they had planned for this. As the guards focused on organizing the chaos, the Gel began their part of the plan. They started resonating at a frequency that made the lights flicker and created a humming sound that hurt Dominion ears. "What's wrong with those crystal things?" a guard yelled, holding his head in pain. While the guards were distracted, Hana slipped away with a small group of mixed species. They moved through a corridor that the Null Scout had found earlier, a maintenance tunnel that led to the communication center. The group included Vextar, 2 On, a young Lumen named Brightsinger, and Kesh, the Vel whose life Hana had saved. Each had been chosen for specific skills they would need. Moving through the tunnel was harder than expected. It was narrow and filled with pipes and wires. The On were too tall and had to crawl. Hana's human flexibility helped her squeeze through tight spaces that even the Vel had trouble with. Human bodies are very adaptable. Kesh observed as Hana helped him through a particularly narrow section. "We had to be," Hana said. "On our homeworld, we needed to survive in many different environments." They reached the communication center after 20 minutes of careful movement. Through a small grate, they could see 2 Dominion guards at their stations. Vextar used his natural ability to interface with electronic systems. He touched the control panel outside the communications center and closed his compound eyes in concentration. "Security cameras are now showing recorded footage from yesterday," he whispered. "The guards will not see us coming." Brightsinger, the young Lumen, flowed under the door like liquid light. Once inside, she overloaded the guards' equipment with a burst of energy. The guards collapsed, unconscious but not dead. The team quickly entered the communication center. The equipment was more advanced than anything Hana had seen before, but Vextar understood it immediately. "I can send a message to anywhere in the galaxy," he said, his 6 hands dancing over the controls. "What should we say?" Hana thought carefully. They might only get one chance at this. Send it to human space first, she said. Tell them our location and that we're alive. Then send copies to the homeworlds of every species here. What message? Asked one of the An. Hana looked around at her alien friends. A week ago, they had been strangers from different worlds who barely trusted each other. Now they were risking their lives together. Tell them that a human showed kindness to aliens in need, she said slowly. Tell them that this created life debts and honor bonds. Tell them that these debts must be paid. Vextar's mandibles clicked with excitement. Yes. In our culture, a life debt extends to the debtor's entire family line. Your whole species is now under our protection. He began transmitting the message. The An added details about their own cultural concepts. Brightsinger sent energy patterns that would be understood by other lumens. Even Kesh contributed, using Vel whistle language to convey emotions that words could not express. As they worked, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. They have discovered we are missing, one of the An said. How long to finish the transmission? Hana asked. 2 more minutes. Vextar replied, sweat beading on his insect face. Through the communication center's windows, they could see Dominion soldiers running toward their building. The guards were armed with energy weapons and looked very angry. They're coming, Kesh warned, his large ears twitching. Hana looked around the room quickly. There was only one exit and the soldiers were blocking it, but she noticed something else, a maintenance shaft in the ceiling. There, she pointed up. Can we reach it? The An were tall enough to boost the others up, but the opening was small. Only Hana and Kesh could fit through easily. You go, Vextar said. I must finish the transmission. We all go together, Hana said firmly. The opening is too small for my people, one of the An said. We will stay and delay the guards. Brightsinger flowed up to the ceiling opening. I can go anywhere. I will scout the path ahead. The soldiers were pounding on the door now. The locks were starting to give way. Transmission complete, Vextar announced. The message has been sent to 47 different star systems. That was when the door burst open and Dominion soldiers poured in. The An fought bravely, using their 4 arms to deflect energy blasts. But they were outnumbered. Hana grabbed Vexitar and pulled him toward the ceiling opening. Now! Kesh had already squeezed through and was helping from above. Hana pushed Vexitar up, then climbed after him. The space was cramped, but they could move. Behind them, they heard the soldiers shouting angrily. The An had been captured, but they had bought enough time for the others to escape. The maintenance shaft led to the roof of the building. Once outside, they could see the entire prison complex. It was huge, with thousands of prisoners working in the crystal mines. Now what? Kesh asked. Brightsinger pulsed with excitement. Now we wait. The messages have been sent. Our people will come. Vextar nodded. The life debt is sacred among my kind. When they receive the message, the entire Vrix collective will respond. Hana looked up at the stars above the gray planet. Somewhere out there, their message was traveling through space at the speed of light. Soon, people would know what had happened here. She thought about all the different species working in the mines below. They didn't know it yet, but help was coming. The bonds they had formed on the transport ship had grown into something much larger. The escape from the communication center was just the beginning. The real rescue was yet to come. As they hid on the rooftop watching for patrols, Hana realized that she was no longer just Dr. Lee Hana, xenobiologist. She had become a symbol of something much bigger. She was the human who had shown aliens that cooperation was stronger than conflict. The seeds they had planted were about to bloom into something the galaxy had never seen before. A true alliance of different species, united not by conquest but by respect and friendship. Down in the mines, other prisoners looked up at the stars and hoped. They didn't know that across the galaxy, massive fleets were already beginning to move. Admiral Kim Dae-ho was having his morning coffee when the message arrived. He was sitting in his office aboard the Human Fleet Command Station, reading reports about minor border disputes and trade negotiations. It was supposed to be a quiet day. Then Lieutenant Choi Min burst through his door without knocking, her face pale with excitement and worry. "Admiral, you need to see this immediately," she said, holding a data pad with shaking hands. Admiral Kim set down his coffee cup. Lieutenant Choi was one of his best officers, and she never got excited about small things. "What is it?" he asked. "We received a transmission from outside our territory. It's It's from Dr. Lee Hanna. The Admiral's eyebrows rose. Dr. Lee Hanna had been reported missing when the Dominion Empire attacked the Kepler 442b colony. The evacuation ships had searched for survivors but found no trace of her. She's alive? He asked. Yes, sir. But that's not the strangest part. The message wasn't just sent to us. According to our communications department, identical transmissions were sent to dozens of alien homeworlds across the galaxy. Admiral Kim took the datapad and read the message carefully. It was short but very clear. Dr. Hanna was being held prisoner on a Dominion mining world. She had saved the life of an alien prisoner, which had created something called life debts among multiple species. The message ended with a request for help and the exact location of the prison world. This is just one human civilian, Admiral Kim said slowly. The Dominion has thousands of prison worlds. We can't start an interstellar war over one person. But even as he said it, something felt wrong about that reasoning. Lieutenant Choi was looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Sir, she said carefully, there's more. Our long-range sensors are detecting massive fleet movements from multiple alien territories. They're all heading toward human space. Admiral Kim felt his stomach drop. Invasion fleets? We don't think so, sir. The formations are wrong for an attack, and we're receiving formal diplomatic communications from species we've never had contact with before. They're requesting permission to enter our territory. The Admiral stood up quickly. This was unprecedented. In the 200 years since humans had developed faster-than-light travel, they had made contact with dozens of alien species. Most contacts were neutral trade relationships. Some were friendly. A few were hostile. But never had multiple species coordinated to contact humanity at the same time. Show me the sensor readings, he ordered. In the command center, the main display showed a three-dimensional map of local space. Red dots indicated approaching fleets. There were more than Admiral Kim had ever seen in one place. My God, he whispered. How many ships are we looking at? Current count is over 3,000 vessels from 15 different species, reported Captain Park Jun, who had been rescued from the Kepler 442b colony, and was now helping with intelligence analysis, and more are still arriving. Weapons status of the alien fleets? Admiral Kim asked. That's the strange part, sir, Lieutenant Choi said. Their weapons are powered down. They're broadcasting on diplomatic frequencies and requesting formal meetings. Admiral Kim had been in the military for 30 years. He had fought pirates, negotiated with hostile aliens, and commanded fleets in 3 different conflicts. But he had never seen anything like this. Get me a communication link with the lead ships from each species, he ordered. What followed was the strangest conversation of Admiral Kim's career. One by one, representatives from alien species spoke to him. Each explained their culture's concept of life debt, honor bonds, or soul brightness. Each described how Dr. Hanna's actions had created sacred obligations that extended to her entire species. Vrick's collective spokesman explained that Vextar had transmitted detailed reports about human adaptability and compassion. The Vricks had decided that humanity was worthy of their highest honor, adoption into the collective as cousin species. A Null commune representative, speaking through a water-filled communication tank, described how Dr. Hanna had created flow harmony between traditionally hostile species. The Null declared that humans were now part of their great flowing, which meant they would defend humanity as they would defend themselves. The conversation with the Gel was especially surprising. The crystalline beings had always considered themselves superior to other species. But their representative explained that Dr. Hanna had shown perfect resonance, the ability to bring harmony between discord. This was the highest virtue in Gel culture. Even species that Admiral Kim had never heard of before came forward with similar stories. The An spoke of soul brightness. The Vel described life singing. The Mordan, usually arrogant and condescending, referred to humans as the young species who carry ancient wisdom. What exactly are you proposing? Admiral Kim asked when all the species had spoken. The Vrick spokesman answered for the group. We propose a joint rescue mission to free Dr. Hanna and all prisoners on the Dominion world. Our species will provide ships, weapons, and soldiers. We ask only that humans lead the mission, as the debt is owed to your people. Admiral Kim looked around his command center. His officers were staring at the displays with amazement. Never in human history had so many alien species offered military assistance. But the Admiral was a practical man. The Dominion Empire controls hundreds of star systems. They have thousands of warships. Even with your help, attacking them directly could start a galactic war. The war has already started, said the Null representative. The Dominion believes might makes right. They take what they want and enslave who they choose. By helping Dr. Hana, you will show the galaxy that there is another way. Captain Park stepped forward. Admiral, request permission to volunteer for the rescue mission. Dr. Hana is my responsibility. I failed to protect her during the evacuation. Lieutenant Choi also stepped forward. Sir, I'd like to volunteer as well. My tactical analysis shows that a coordinated multi-species assault could succeed if properly planned. Admiral Kim looked at the displays again. The alien fleets were maintaining perfect formation just outside human territory, waiting for his decision. He thought about Dr. Hana, a xenobiologist who had probably never fired a weapon in her life, somehow inspiring this massive alliance. Very well, he said finally. Captain Park, you'll command the rescue mission. Lieutenant Choi will handle tactical coordination with our alien allies. I want detailed plans within 24 hours. As his officers began coordinating with the alien fleets, Admiral Kim realized that everything was about to change. This wasn't just a rescue mission. It was the beginning of something new. A coalition of species united not by conquest or fear, but by respect and shared values. In the depths of space, the largest alliance fleet in galactic history began to form. Ships from dozens of different species flew together in formations that had never been attempted before. Frick's engineering vessels worked alongside Null fluid ships. Gel crystal cruisers resonated in harmony with lumen energy beings, and at the center of it all was the human fleet, small compared to their alien allies, but honored as the leaders of this unprecedented cooperation. Dr. Hana had no idea that her simple acts of kindness had triggered something that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. She was still hiding on the prison world waiting for rescue, but rescue was coming, and it was bringing friends. The Allied fleet arrived at the prison world like a storm of stars. Captain Park Jun stood on the bridge of the human flagship, watching as hundreds of ships from dozens of species dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect coordination. All ships report ready, Lieutenant Choi Min announced from her tactical station. The alien fleets are in position and awaiting orders. Captain Park felt the weight of command heavily on his shoulders. He had failed to protect Dr. Hana during the evacuation of Kepler 442b. Now he had a chance to make up for that failure, but the stakes were enormous. Signal from the surface, Lieutenant Choi reported. It's Dr. Hana. On the main screen, Hana's face appeared. She looked tired and dirty, but her eyes were bright with determination. Behind her, Captain Park could see Vextar and several other aliens. Captain Park, Hana said with relief. You came back. We promised we would, Captain Park replied. Are you safe? How many prisoners are on the planet? We're hiding in the old mining tunnels, Hana explained. There are over 50,000 prisoners from more than 100 different species. Most are working in the crystal mines, but we've been organizing them. Captain Park was amazed. Organizing them how? Hana smiled, and for a moment she looked like the confident scientist he remembered from the colony. Turns out that when you treat different species with respect and kindness, they're willing to work together in amazing ways. We've been planning a coordinated uprising to help with whatever rescue attempt you might make. Lieutenant Choi leaned forward. Dr. Hana, we have the largest alliance fleet in galactic history up here. 15 different species, over 3,000 ships. But the planet's defenses are still formidable. That won't be a problem much longer, Hana said. Vextar appeared beside her on the screen. Captain Park, the Vrix engineer said formally. The prisoners have been preparing for 3 weeks. We have taken control of the main power grid, the mining equipment, and most of the communication systems. We were only waiting for the signal to begin. Captain Park looked at Lieutenant Choi in amazement. They've been running an underground resistance operation down there. It gets better, Hana continued. We've identified the locations of all the prison camps across this system. There are 12 different worlds with slave operations. The prisoners on each world have been in contact with each other through the maintenance communication networks. The scope of what they had accomplished was staggering. In 3 weeks, using nothing but cooperation between different species, they had created a resistance network across an entire star system. Dominion fleet approaching, Lieutenant Choi announced. 67 warships closing fast. Captain Park nodded. This was the moment they had planned for. "Signal all Allied ships," he ordered. "Execute Battle Plan Alpha. Remember, our primary objective is prisoner rescue, not destruction." The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Dominion fleet was outnumbered, but they fought fiercely. Their ships were heavily armed and their crews were experienced warriors, but the Allied fleet had something the Dominion had never faced: perfect coordination between species that had learned to trust each other completely. Bricks ships used their superior engineering to enhance the weapons of other species. Null vessels flowed through enemy formations like water, striking from unexpected angles. Gel cruisers created resonance fields that disrupted Dominion electronics. The Lumens were especially effective. Their energy-based ships could move faster than anything else in space, and they could combine with each other to create massive energy blasts. But it was the humans who provided the tactical leadership that made it all work. Lieutenant Choi coordinated the battle from the flagship, while human officers throughout the fleet ensured that different species could work together smoothly. "Dominion defenses on the planet's surface are down," Lieutenant Choi reported. "The prisoner uprising has been successful." On the planet below, the uprising was indeed successful beyond anyone's expectations. 50,000 prisoners from over 100 species had worked together with military precision. They had disabled the guards, taken control of the facilities, and secured the landing areas for rescue ships. Hana stood in the main prison complex, watching as transport ships from dozens of species landed to evacuate the former prisoners. But she wasn't just evacuating the slaves from this world. "We're taking everyone," she told Captain Park when he arrived with the rescue teams. "Every prisoner from every world in this system. No one gets left behind." The rescue operation took 6 hours. Transport after transport lifted off from 12 different worlds, carrying liberated prisoners back to their home systems. But many of the freed aliens chose to stay with the fleet, at least for now. "Where will they go?" Captain Park asked as they watched the last transport ships departing. "That's up to them," Hana replied. "But something tells me this is just the beginning." She was right. Word of the Great Rescue, as it came to be called, spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communications. The story of how a single human's kindness had created an alliance of species was told and retold on thousands of worlds. 6 months later, Ambassador Song Yuri opened the first interspecies cooperation center on Earth. Dr. Hana served as its director. The facility became a symbol of what was possible when different species chose cooperation over conflict. The building itself was a marvel of collaborative engineering. Vrix architects had designed spaces that could accommodate any known species. Null flowing gardens provided peaceful areas for contemplation. Shell resonance chambers allowed for perfect communication between any species. But the real work happened in the meeting rooms and laboratories, where representatives from dozens of species worked together on problems that had seemed impossible to solve alone. The Dominion Empire found itself increasingly isolated. Their philosophy of conquest through force seemed primitive compared to the Alliance's approach of mutual benefit through cooperation. One by one, species that had been neutral or even hostile to the Alliance began requesting membership. "How does it feel to have changed the galaxy?" Captain Park asked Hana during the center's opening ceremony. Hana looked around at the diverse crowd of beings attending the celebration. Vrix engineers were teaching human children how to build simple machines. Null poets were collaborating with human writers to create new forms of literature. Shell musicians were performing with human orchestras. "I didn't change anything," she said. "I just showed people what was already possible." Every species in the galaxy has concepts of kindness, honor, and cooperation. They just needed someone to remind them that these values are stronger than fear and hatred. Vexitar approached them, now wearing the insignia of a Vrix diplomatic officer. "Dr. Hana," he said formally, "I have a message from the Collective Council. They have completed their analysis of human culture and society." "Oh?" Hana asked. "They have concluded that humans possess a unique ability to serve as bridges between different species. The Council has voted to propose that humanity be designated as the connector species, the official mediators for interspecies disputes throughout the galaxy." Hana looked at Captain Park, who was grinning widely. "That's quite an honor," she said, "but also quite a responsibility." "The best part," Vextar continued, "is that the proposal has been endorsed by every species in the Alliance. including 12 new species that joined just this week. That evening, as the opening celebration continued around them, Hannah received a priority communication from a distant part of the galaxy. A species she had never heard of was requesting help with a crisis involving their neighbors. As she prepared to respond, she reflected on how everything had started with a simple choice on Kepler 442b. She could have run when the Dominion attacked. Instead, she had stayed to help others. That one decision had led to her capture, which led to her helping fellow prisoners, which led to the Great Rescue, which led to the Alliance, which was now bringing peace to species across the galaxy. Small acts, large consequences, she murmured, remembering something her grandmother used to say. From her office window, she could see the stars. Somewhere out there, beings from hundreds of different worlds were working together, exploring together, and building a future together. And it had all started because one human chose kindness over fear. The galaxy would never be the same.